Hello, GatsbyConf. My name is Alex Moon. I am a solution architect at WP Engine, which means I spend a lot of time talking to people about headless WordPress. But that is not what I'm here to talk to you about today. I've also been involved in the Gatsby ecosystem for over 4 years now, since early 2018. And in that time, I've spent a lot of time working with and building plugins. I've helped with, plugin manifest, plugin sitemap. I've built some of my own plugins, and I even worked at Gatsby for a couple months, helping CMS partners build better source plugins. And in that time, I've seen the power of plugins, and I've seen the struggle of plugins as well. And so I want to talk to you today about how I think we can better maintain plugins in the Gatsby ecosystem and what I'm doing to help with that. So what's kind of the base problem here? Well, fundamentally, it's plugins going unmaintained. And this isn't really a Gatsby problem, or this is an open source problem, right? This is a hard thing. Plugin goes unmaintained for a lot of different reasons. But when these kinds of tasks don't get completed, plugin becomes unmaintained. And this isn't a criticism to those maintainers, really, right? We all have lives, and we've got priorities that are more important than free labor. So what is the result of a plugin going unmaintained? What's the net effect on the community? Well, this results in this, right? Because you have a lower quality plugin, right, maintenance isn't happening. Maybe someone shows up and they have a bug. They would like, a dependency bump for whatever the latest dependencies are. It could be super small. It could be super major. Whatever it is, it causes a plugin quality to drop. That's not great for the community. But the community can handle this, right? This is open source. So we duplicate plugins, right? We create forks. And this is good. Like, this is a benefit of open source, but at the same time, this isn't ideal because this leads to decision fatigue, right? Now, as developers, we show up to the plugin registry and we find 2, 3, 4, 5 different plugins that all do roughly the same thing, and we have to figure out why we would choose one over another. All this results in more development work. So, what's the cause of this? Right? Like, why is this fundamentally happening? Well, let's look at kind of 2 different scenarios within the Gatsby ecosystem specifically. First of all, let's look at plugins that are inside the Gatsby mono. So what's good about a plugin existing here? Well, there's lots of potential contributors, right? Anyone that is familiar and using Gatsby is probably familiar with the mono repo and can come find stuff and say, oh, I can contribute to that. Something that's only okay about this setup, though, is the potential maintainers are limited to Gatsby Inc. And the exact reasons are, complicated, but basically, like, Gatsby needs control over what's happening there to maintain quality. And so they can't just let anyone come in the door and start merging into the repository. And so that's understandable, but it's not ideal, right? The more maintainers, the better, the more throughput, theoretically. And the bad of this is all this is subject to Gatsby Inc.'s prioritization. Again, Gatsby rightfully should be focused on the core Gatsby project and building the community as a whole, and not these smaller plugins that maybe a small subset of the community uses. So let's look at the other side of this. Like, okay, a lot of people build plugins out in the community repos because of the situation in the Gatsby mono repo. And this is great because now prioritization is driven by the need of the community, right? Community needs it, wants it, they can build it and do it. What's only okay about this is that potential contributors are kind of limited by visibility, right? Especially if there's multiple plugins that do this one thing, then you're spreading potential contributors over those plugins. And the bad of this is there's really few potential maintainers. There's probably just one person, in fact. Like, maybe if it's run by a company or a small team, there's 2, 3, 4 people, but that's really, really unlikely. And even if, let's say, it's a CMS provider building their own source plugin, right? Gatsby is just one aspect of the community they work in. So again, their prioritization also might be a little distracted from the core plugin. So what are some theoretical solutions? Well, this is one, but it's probably not the greatest. So what are some really tangible things we could do to kind of pick the best of both worlds and create a whole new world, in fact, that is really better off for the plugin ecosystem here? Well, we want something where we have both a large base of potential maintainers, but also contributors, right? Like it's high visibility. Anyone from the community that wants to can come in and maintain or contribute. And the prioritization is based on the needs of those contributors or maintainers directly, and not Gatsby Inc. or any other company. So what's the solution, right? Well, let's jump back in time a little bit. This is about the time Gatsby v3 released. I've been thinking about some of this. This really came to a head with the need to bump peer dependencies, and it really kind of came into focus that the peer dependency bumps aren't a huge deal, but this this got me thinking on this greater issue, and finally feeling like if someone's going to do something and solve this problem, it might as well be me. So what does this look like practically? Well, I kind of threw some thoughts together, and I reached out to Christopher Burns on Twitter, who I just made a contribution to his plugin related to Gatsby v3, and he said, "Hey man, what if this thing exists, like something like a software foundation where everyone could show up and make contributions and maintain stuff together? And if someone wasn't available for a week, a month, or a year, or the rest of their lives, like for whatever reason, the rest of the community could pick up that slack and move that plugin forward without having to fork it and create the issues that we've identified previously, right?" And so he's like, "Dude, I love it. Take my plugin." So the Gatsby User Collective was born, and I started really kind of focusing on what is this going to be, what is this going to look like, and came up with a couple different things here. First, I really wanted a low bar to maintainership. I didn't need professionals. I didn't need experts that have been writing these plugins for 3 years before I let them hit merge. Like at the end of the day, I don't want to be the blocker, like just moving it around, right? I want other people to be able to hit merge and release. Again, this needed to be independent of Gatsby. I wanted the contributors and maintainers involved to be the ones that could prioritize the work being done, right? They can do the work they want to do and not do the work they don't want to. So fundamentally, the Gatsby User Collective takes a bunch of plugins from the ecosystem and it rolls it up into one mono repo so that a bunch of people can do the same amount of work. But what if we could optimize that even more? What if we can use automation so that we have more people doing less work? And that's some of the things we've tried to accomplish here, right? So change sets. We're using these to automate change logs and releases. And we've obviously got a bunch of testing, linting, and other best practices kind of implemented. And there's more to be done and more that we could do. But there was something we didn't have, and that was trust and visibility. I started this project over a year ago now, and my plugins are there, Christopher Burns' plugins are there, and there's a couple other plugins that have gotten contributed. I've heard some good feedback from folks and from the folks at Gatsby, which we'll talk about in a second. But fundamentally, like me with my couple hundred Twitter followers, I'm not that visible in the Gatsby community, so people just knowing about the project is hard. But second of all, people's like willingness and trust of me right now to help steward this project and this community really doesn't exist. Like I'm pretty much a rando on the internet, right? And that wasn't something I could necessarily solve on my own. Maybe over a long period of time I could. And this is where Gatsby comes in. I know most of the team over there fairly well. And they reached out and they're like, hey, we really like what you're doing with the Gatsby User Collective. We think it's a great idea. That's going to be super beneficial to the plugin ecosystem. Is there anything we can do to support, right? Is there anything we can do to make this what you want it to be and kind of complete the vision of it and really get the community involved in it? And so on the visibility side of the thing, they've offered me this platform to come and share about the community and what we're doing and what I want it to be. And second of all, this platform also engenders their trust into this project and say, yes, this is cool. You can trust Alex to help, push this forward. He's not some rando that's going to steal your plugins and run away. So, big thanks to Gatsby for helping that, right? The other thing that they helped me think through was governance around the project to really create some structure so people felt like their voices would be heard and that I would not be the one kind of in sole control of this project. So, come contribute. We're a community, right? We need and want people to come join as they desire. Your contribution could look like a lot of different things. Here's some ideas on the plugins specifically. If you have plugins in your own repos out there somewhere and you want to open them up to community contributions, even more so than open source normally allows, then come open an issue and we'll get your plugin joined into the repository. As far as kind of like requirements, there are none that are really hard and fast. We just want to open up plugins to the community, and whether you've got a plugin that's old and you're still working on it, great. If you've got an old plugin that you're not working on, but you want to open up to the community, great. One success story we've had in this area is the maintainer of Gatsby-verse S3 came to me and said, hey, I've got my fork of this plugin that I would like to contribute, and it's probably one of the more mature forks, but there's Dustin Shao's original Gatsby-verse S3, and there's this other fork of it over here. Like, I don't know where you want to release this as, but this is my fork of it. And I said, well, I know Dustin. I reached out to him and I said, hey, Dustin, any chance we can take over your fork of Gatsby-verse S3 since it's kind of the original name? And he's like, yeah, here. I haven't touched it in 3-4 years. And so Robert's version of Gatsby-verse S3 has now been depreciated and merged in and released as the original namespace and no longer under his name scope, which is great, right? We've reduced that the forking and that decision tree from 3 plugins to 2 plugins, which is great. And if you're building new plugins from scratch, think about the Gatsby User Collective as a place that you could do that. Thank you for coming. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Gatsby conference. I hope you're as excited as I am about the Gatsby User Collective. I will see you in a second in Q&A, but I also hope to see you and your plugins in the Gatsby User Collective.
Don't miss the live Q&A coming up now.